Seamus Heaney, one of the world's most accomplished poets, has died at the age of 74 following a short illness. Heaney, born in County Derry in Northern Ireland, won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1995. The Nobel jury honoured his work for its lyrical beauty and ethical depth. His most famous collections, Death of a Naturalist and Spirit Level, won acclaim from highbrow critics as well as the book-buying public. Heaney, the eldest of 9 children, was born in April 1939 and published his first work in 1966. He died in Dublin. Seamus Heaney leaves behind his wife Marie and 3 children, Christopher, Michael and Catherine Ann.
Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun.
Digging, the first poem in Seamus Heaney's first collection, learnt by generations of schoolchildren. It described his father and grandfather at work. He was brought up in Bellaghy in the rural heart of Northern Ireland and enjoyed great success while still young.
I'm very glad that a couple of months ago in London I was able to tell Seamus that I'd been looking through his early books and that I thought the poems were miracles. And he joked, he said, well, they came from Bellaghy, they'd have to be miracles, but they are miracles, and he continued to write miraculous poems.
Northern Ireland's troubles made him more widely known. A Catholic, his sympathies lay with the nationalists, but he always condemned violence and its effects.
We're a society, if you like, that has fallen from grace. This is limbo land at best, and at worst, the country of the damned.
Many poets are private people. Heaney was a celebrity, always ready with an opinion, sometimes known as Famous Seamus. His status was confirmed when Bill Clinton quoted some of his verse at a state banquet in Dublin as Northern Ireland crept tentatively towards peace.
I leave half ready to believe that a cripple's trust might walk.
From humble beginnings on a farm outside Derry, he became a literary icon around the world. His many works inspired by the history and the hope of his home.
Our nation is in mourning for a colossus of world literature, our brightest star, but also someone who was the most humblest of men. He was a lovely, lovely man who will be very, very sorely missed.
He dined with monarchs and presidents, lectured in Oxford and Harvard, but there wasn't a hint of pride. He once commended the US rapper Eminem for tackling tough issues. Tributes are pouring into this city, from heads of state to English students, past and present. It seems countless lives were impacted by the farmer's son, who had a way with words.
The winner of the 1996 Whitbread Book of the Year is Seamus Heaney.
St Columb's College has had 2 Nobel winners. The other, John Hume, has described Seamus Heaney as a man who dared to dream, even in our darkest days.
Heaney was a poet that was exceptionally popular in Ireland. He was known, he was a household name in a way that pretty much no other poet since WB Yeats was. He was of a generation of exceptionally talented young Northern Irish poets that emerged at a time in the 1960s when the province was descending into sectarian conflict. It informed a lot of his writing, particularly he never really took partisan sides during the Troubles. He was Catholic himself. His Protestant critics sometimes accused him of really going a little bit soft on the IRA. I don't think that's exactly true, but certainly some of his finest poems drew on the Troubles, such as Funeral Rites, Casualty, Punishment, poems that were published in the 1970s, which was pretty much the blackest decade of the Northern Irish conflict. He was also from a farming background, and he never really left the farm in his poetry. From his first collection, Death of a Naturalist in 1966, up until his final one, Human Chain, which was 3 years ago. And that was something that made him an exceptionally popular choice with school children and on school curriculums, both in Ireland, the UK and elsewhere in the English-speaking world. And despite being a very richly elusive poet, a poet of real thematic complexity, he was quite accessible. His poems were definitely something that young and old, the ordinary person on the street could read, hence his immense popularity. And his death does come as a shock. He spoke in Paris here only 2 months ago, or read rather, and it was attended by about 500 people, a testimony to his popularity once again. But he did have a stroke in 2006, which he wryly said gave him a new subject for his poetry, and that was in his final volume, Human Chain. He apparently was reported to have collapsed in public last week, so he had been unwell for a while. But it's something that really, he leaves a big void in Irish poetry.